Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today it's time for a quick tip. I thought I'd talk a little bit about when I choose to use a shears versus using a saw to cut things. So let's get started. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my merch store. This one has stuff about sizing rings, and some of the other ones have other important metalsmithing information like conversion charts, and stuff about stone hardness. There's a few other ones too. So check out the merch store and you'll find some notebooks that have some useful information on them, in addition to being a great place to keep track of your projects, which is the primary reason that I use them. Because after doing these videos for almost 5 years now, I've done hundreds and hundreds of projects. So to remember all of them that I've done is really hard, and it's nice to have a record that I can go back to and see how I did it in case I wanted to do it again. So that's something that I changed in my process when I first started doing the channel, and I'm glad I did because I now have a permanent record of all this stuff. So, and I'm less likely to forget. Today we don't have really much of a project picture because we're going to talk about when I use shears versus when I use my saw. So these are the shears that I generally use. They're Fisker's craft shears. These are pretty widely available at craft stores or some of the various retail outlets. I think I got mine at a hardware store. They got Home Depot colors, so I think that's the case. But these are great little shears for cutting stuff up to about 18 gauge. Beyond that, you're definitely going to have to use a saw. But I use one of these C-shaped saws. I used to have one of the really old-fashioned ones, and it was a terrible saw. So I really recommend getting a good saw. But the big question here is, when I'm cutting some sheet, when do I use the shears and when do I use the saw? So I want to talk about a couple of things that happens when you use the shears and how to deal with it and whether it's worth the trouble. So let me grab some copper sheet and we'll use that as an example. So when I first started doing this, I never ever really used the saw because I didn't like the saw. I wasn't good at it, and I couldn't cut straight lines with it, and a big part of that was because I had a bad saw. So stick with your sawing because it does come in useful a lot of times, but I didn't saw much for the first 20 years I did this. Because shears, honestly, can get you by in a lot of situations. Now, there's some disadvantages about shears, so let me do something real quick. So let's say I want to cut a strip for a ring band or something like that. I scribe a nice straight line like that. I can use my shears to cut this off. That's fine. It'll cut through 18 gauge copper for sure. So let's do that. Okay, let's cut this off. So when you're cutting something off with shears, you'll find when I straighten this back out, it's not going to be straight anymore. I think it's because when you're pushing down on this edge with the shears, it's pinching through it, and it's distorting the metal on the edge there. So when I cut through this, it was pinching the metal together over here, which was compressing it and pulling on the edges, I think, on the outer surface. So it kind of causes it to pull this way a little bit over the length of the thing. The longer you do it, the steeper the curve will be. So when I lay it next to this, you can see it's got just a little bit of a curve to it there. You can see it rocking on this side over here like that. So it's easy enough to correct, although it's going to distort the metal a little bit when you do stuff like this, because you're bending this side longer and then you're shortening it back up, so it's going to do some weird stuff to the metal. Not only work hardening it, but distorting it a little bit. So if I hold it like this, though, do that. and then in order to get it to be nice and flat, a lot of times I'll do this. So, and that gets us back to pretty straight. Although if you want to avoid that altogether, if we just sawed this out with a saw blade and then filed it nice and flat, none of that distortion of the geometry of the piece itself is going to happen because you're cutting right through the metal right there and it's just going to stay straight. So it's a trade-off on this particular situation. If you're doing a strip and you got the time and you just want to use the shears because it's easier and then straighten it out afterwards, you can do that, but you're going to end up with that curve a little bit. The only other situation that jumps to mind that's relatively common when I'm cutting stuff out where it's easier to use the saw is if you have, let's say we're trying to cut something out that has a curve like this. Or this side's pretty easy to cut with the shears because you're going this outside angle like that. These inside curves like this, it's really hard to guide it in there because as you cut into here, the rest of this runs into this part of the shears, so it's hard to angle it backwards that way. So just sawing it out that way is much easier. That's inside curves is one of those situations where you almost always have to use the saw. So, and of course, really intricate, ornate patterns or something like that, you always want to use the saw too. So you can cut straight stuff with this, but it will curve it slightly. If you use this, it'll keep it straight the entire time. But you can cut it this way, get it slightly curved, and then straighten it back out. It's just an extra step, so it might be easier just to cut it out with the saw in the first place. When you're doing an inside curve, definitely want to use the saw. It's much easier. Alright, well, I'd love to hear your sawing tricks or situations that you've run into where you had to make a decision about using your shears or a saw, and what your decision was maybe. Just leave me a comment, let me know. I'd love to hear your tricks and stuff too. Alright, well, I hope that was a useful video for you. If you found it so, it would be great if you hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that a lot. I'd also love it if you go visit my main channel page on YouTube here. With 660 plus videos, there's almost certainly something else useful you can find over there. I hope so anyway. But check it out, watch a few, and then subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost anything, helps me, makes it easier for you to find my content. It's a win-win for everybody. I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. They help me not only with their financial help, they help me with moral support when I'm feeling stressed or whatever. So thanks for being a cool group with a lot of skilled people who are willing to share their own knowledge as well. So I really enjoy my Patreon. Thank you for making it that way. The other group are my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 29,700. I never really thought I'd have that many followers, so thanks for doing that. I really love the comment section on YouTube, and I learn a lot from all of you, and I appreciate your input on things. Ultimately, I want to make a useful learning platform for a lot of people who share the interests that I've developed. So feel free to share your knowledge, and thank you for those of you who have already. Thank you also for the kind contributions, the Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, buying my merch on my shop, buying my ebooks. All of that stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help, so thank you for that. The description down below has information about this video, but it also has some important links. It has a link to my Patreon if you want to check that out. It has a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks or some other merch. And it has a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials. I did a little bit more than 170 videos last year, and this ebook has a page for each of them. It has a link to the video itself. It has a picture of the sketch that I drew prior to doing the project. It has a final outcome picture. It has a list of materials to make the project. It has stone information if it had a stone in it. It even has a difficulty rating. And finally, I put some notes about each project, things that I might have thought of after the video was done, how I might do it differently, if I was to approach it again, did I make any mistakes, how did I fix them, stuff like that. So I think it's a useful guide, and it has tons of projects. And so if you get it, not only will you be providing yourself with a whole bunch of projects, you'll be supporting my channel too. So thanks for doing that in advance. You can even get all 3 books that I've done, which is 2023, 2024, and 2025 as a package deal. If you go to the merch store and look for the combo pack, you can get all 3 of them for $15 off the total. So it's a good deal, I think. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.